The molds are all done, and now it's time to cast up the baby imps. First, we're going to dump a little baby powder into the molds and brush it around the entire surface. The baby powder helps the resin to flow into all of your details and eliminate surface bubbles. It also acts as a bit of a mold release. Make sure you dump out the extra baby powder and then brush out or blow out any powder that's trapped in your details. I'm going to start by using my favorite casting urethane called Sil Plastic, which is made by Silpak. Always make sure you shake up both part A and part B really well before using. So now we're going to pour some of part B into a cup so that we can pigment it orange. I'm using the So Strong urethane pigments from Smooth On. First, I take a tongue depressor and just barely dip the tip into the yellow pigment and then stir it into part B. A little goes a long way with pigments, so you only want to add a couple drops at a time until you achieve your color. Mix it in really well and remember to wear gloves and be careful because pigments can be really messy. Okay, that looks like enough yellow. Now let's add some red to create our orange color. Again, just add a tiny bit at a time and mix it up really well until you achieve the desired color. Okay, I think this looks pretty good for now. Sometimes there can be a little trial and error and take some experimenting to nail your color. And now let's weigh out a little of the part B that we pigmented, and we'll set aside the rest of it for the other castings. Next, we will weigh out an equal amount of part A. And now we pour one part into the other and really scrape all of it out with a tongue depressor. Then make sure you stir it up really well for about 20 seconds, scraping the sides and the bottom. And now dump the resin into your mold and using a disposable brush, brush it all around the surface and get it into all the details. And now I'm going to rotate the mold as the resin starts to thicken and set up. This is called Roto Casting. The goal is to create an even skin of resin on the surface. Just keep rotating the mold and sloshing it around the entire surface. At some point, it will get so thick that it won't flow anymore, and you need to stop and leave it alone to set up completely. Once it's completely cured, it will be an opaque orange color. Now repeat this process so that all the molds have a urethane skin. Okay, so now I cut some foot-long pieces of 1/8" armature wire and I bend a loop at the end like this. These are the armatures that we will build their viney bodies on. We will be inserting these wires into the rigid foam when we fill the molds, and these loops will help lock them in. I used Smooth On's Foam It 3 rigid foam, and man, does this stuff expand like crazy. Again, make sure you shake up parts A and B really well before using. This is a 1-to-1 mix by volume. So first, I pour out a little of part B, and then I pour out an equal amount of part A. This is probably only about 30 grams of material. Now pour one part into the other, scrape it all out, and then aggressively stir it up really well for about 15 seconds. Then quickly dump it into the mold and start sloshing it around to cover the entire surface. You have to work pretty fast because this stuff will start rising quick. As soon as it starts rising out, grab your armature wire and stick it down into the mold a couple of inches, but not all the way down till it hits the bottom. And then just hold it there and keep some pressure on it until the foam stops rising. And as you can see, that was way more foam than I needed. Well, again, sometimes there's a bit of experimenting to get it right. For the next ones, I mixed up about half as much foam, and it was still more than I needed. A little really goes a long way with this foam. It's always better though to have a little extra than not enough. Remember to make sure you put the loop end of your wire down into the foam. I used to cut off these extra foam blobs too and paint them up to look like mutant mushrooms. Nothing is ever wasted. After about 40 minutes, I'm ready to pop them out. Start by pulling away the sides of the molds and loosening it up from the part. Then you can grab onto that extra foam and use it as leverage to help pull it out. And there it is, our first urethane and rigid foam baby imp casting. And now just pop out the other two. The urethane skin really picks up all the detail and gives it a nice strong shell. I had to cut that giant blob of foam off of this one because I couldn't even get to it. A small tooth saw blade will cut through this foam really easily. Just be careful you don't cut through your armature wire. And here's our first 3 baby imp castings. The orange color wasn't perfect, but overall, they turned out pretty great. So stay tuned for part 4, where we fabricate their viney bodies and start to paint them. See you soon!